So just in terms of refining, this is now at that leather hard phase. If you saw before, like it was warping in my grip. Now it's kind of holding its shape pretty well. I can tap on the surface. It's pretty firm. Just some couple of things, because I'm going to change this into more geometric shapes. So I'm going to have like 4 different corners. I can start that by gently pushing in sections, just bringing my fingers down around that wall. Okay, you're going to do that on the opposite side too, creating a corner and then pushing down. And then just kind of finding a general midpoint here. Now remember, with leather hard clay, this is holding its shape, but if I push too much, what'll happen? It's going to crack. Okay, finding the midpoint here. And then again, I'm just kind of going down with my fingers along this wall. All right. So from here, you have some tools that you could actually help to paddle that shape. You know, using this or the wood knife will do just fine with this. And I just grip the end of the tool so it has a lot of lever. Another tool, that, like if you go to Home Depot and just ask them for a paint stick, they give these away for free. If you have a wooden ruler, that also works pretty well for the same purpose. It also, if you can see, is like smoothing out all those little ripples that I still had from before. Okay, so I have just some gentle kind of changes. I can also use the table to do the same thing. Okay, and again, this is like just at hitting that leather hard phase so that it holds its shape. Okay, I might go on the inside with this tool a little bit just to like clean some of that up. I can probably save that for later though. Now in my design that I showed you guys last class in Canvas, I had this detailed mandala pattern. So I'm going to flip this upside down and start that from the outside. Okay. Some people ask me, like, can I put my design on the inside? And the answer is like, why not? Okay, this is yours and your design. Like, you know, you could put, if this is like a cereal bowl and you finish, that could be like a secret message or something, you know. So I'm going to go ahead. I have some cleanup to do, but I'll save that for the end. Just going to go ahead and flip that upside down. Smooth out some of those inconsistencies. And I'm just going to start carving my patterns into this. Okay. So a needle tool will work just fine. Where is my needle tool? Let me go grab that real quick. Okay. So my needle tool, I'm actually going to bring the camera down so you guys can see a little bit closer. There we go. This does a really good job of creating just like carved lines. Now just I want to show you a little tip that I show a lot of beginners. A lot of students will just hold this like a pencil. Now if I create that detailed pattern with a pencil, do you see all those crumbs that build up in the form? Okay, so that's a lot of work for me to take care of later. Whereas if I flip my grip to where I'm holding it in my hand, closing it with my finger over the top, instead of holding it almost perpendicular, it kind of flattens the angle. So instead of digging into the clay, it pushes. And look how much smoother that creates a shape. Okay? So just to compare, crummy, clean. All right. I'm just going to repeat that mandala pattern going around. Okay. Creating details in between. Okay. And this is a little bit different from my original plan, so there's nothing wrong with improvising as you go if you don't have like something ironed out. So back to what I was doing, just trying to figure out different ways. So this was just doing like incise carving. Now I'm going to use some of these tools like a stamp. Okay. So with that, I like this pointed edge if I want to create like little triangle shapes. You can see how this like stamps in and creates my pattern without having to do specific triangles. It's making that for me. Okay. Kind of pressing in the corners of that in repetition so I get nice details in between. Okay. You could also use stuff like just the needle tool. This other end could actually be something that I could use to create shapes too. So if I'm using this to create like spots, that's a lot cleaner than if I'm trying to do the same thing by carving little circles. And anyways, you can also add things on top instead of just carving in. Okay, now this is starting to warp a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of bring that back into place. So what I might do is like consider like, what about this top edge? What if I added like a ring around there? So I'll take some extra clay. Push that out of the way for a sec. I'll move that down so you can see. And I'm going to kind of use the coil technique mixed with slab to create a piece that wraps. Just go ahead. Okay, you're good. All right, so with this, if I'm going to try to like flatten it out, I'm just going to toss it on the table with specific pressure. So there we go. Hold it on the opposite side and repeat. Okay. And I can even kind of clean up the edges too just by using this as table as a paddle itself. If I wanted, I could even use some other things to kind of help thin that out. Or I could just make a bigger slab and then cut this out of it. Okay. So, let's bring that back up here. There we go. If I'm going to attach this, remember you have to score, slip, stick, smooth. Okay? So I'm going to go around this, scraping up these edges, just roughing it up. Because remember, if you just leave it smooth, the walls that are attaching are not going to overlap, and they'll eventually fall apart as the clay shrinks from losing all that water that's dissolved into it as it dries. So this is going to prevent it from falling apart. And I'm just going back over this time in the opposite direction, kind of cross-hatching if you know drawing, or if you don't know drawing, just essentially like think of it as thousands of X's or hundreds of X's. Okay, little meticulous for that. I'm going to do the same thing with this coil. So just going across, and don't be shy, like really hack at that. Some people really hate this part. I actually really like little things like this, just because your brain shuts off and kind of goes into autopilot. You drift and think about other things. It's kind of the meditative, relaxing part of like art making, where you don't have to focus so much, you just do. Oops. Sorry about that. You guys still see all right? And now I just have a cup of slip, and I'm adding that. Actually, this is going super slow, and I don't mind getting mud on my fingers. So just adding slip all across this to make sure that this glues into place. Okay. So now, if I move that back up to here, I'm going to take this edge and just start pressing it, sticking it in place, systematically pressing each individual spot. Oh, is it going to be long enough? Oh, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. All right, so then I'm just kind of pushing that against that to help blend in and get good compression in the attachment. And then if you're seeing around like this edge here and this edge here, this is a pretty poor connection still. So I'm going to take this tool and just kind of blend in where I've sealed it. Okay, if I cover up some of that design, it's no big deal. The clay's still soft enough that I can go back over. Okay, maybe stamp it again. And yes, this will thicken the wall of clay a little bit, so you have to be considerate of how much you add in terms of pieces, so you don't make a wall that's too thick. Pressing that a little bit more, and then dragging. I'm just trying to check for the gaps around here. If I see gaps, I want to push and fill that in. I don't know if you can see that a little bit better. Okay. Pushing in. Good seal and blend. Looks like this. I might need to push some clay from over here into the gap. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of clean and smooth that with my finger, dragging around the form. And maybe create another little pattern, just, one. Repeat. So again, this is kind of like just stamping patterns. Somebody's getting after it today. And maybe again I can kind of reinforce some of those design motifs. So like if I wanted to create like triangle patterns, I'm going to skip every other. Sorry if my hand's like blocking the view. But what I'm doing is going to go back every other so those intersect. So this is super detailed. I know, like maybe more than you guys should be expected, but I figure like at least with what I'm doing, I'm showing you enough different techniques to try to experiment a little bit. That was another lucky thing where I wasn't sure if I was going to hit two parallel. Okay, and then as long as it didn't stick. Okay. Got a little bit of cleanup on the top to do, but you can see like super detailed, interesting form. Maybe this could be like a little aloe or cactus plant or something like that. Okay. Questions? All right. Well, again, the worksheet in your project design is due this week for midterm, so make sure you get that in before Friday. Make sure you also get the first impressions assignment turned in, where you're supposed to show competence with just the basic techniques, not necessarily thinking about it as a project, though. Just so you know, if you did first impressions, but you didn't turn in the basic hand building, you'll get an automatic 1 because that still applies to hand building basics. And then for this assignment, if you did the Greenware quiz, which is fixed now, it applies to the learning in this assignment, just in a very low means. You'll get essentially a 1 on this assignment. So if you need just to get the quick 1s so that you're passing for midterm, hint, hint. But in all honesty, these assignments that are due are not that hard. You might be using your time better if you just get those done. Okay? So that's that.